Good morning, welcome to Featherwood Farm. This is Darcy and we're gonna do our August full garden tour. This is in the courtyard area just outside the front door. You can see the hostas have been going in and out of bloom. Starting to look slightly ragged, but not too bad. These goat's beard, the blooms have obviously faded out. I leave the spent blooms. I don't mind the way it looks. Have a couple of Rudbeckias that actually have some black leaf spot. It doesn't affect like the plant overall. It just affects the leaves. So when it gets bad, I'll kind of pick some of the leaves off and scrap them, but I'm not going to destroy these plants. In the front of this are some of those seed plants and a few weeds. So this is the chamomile that I put in. Those hibiscus, the mahogany splendor, they're growing really slowly in this area. I have them in a few other areas and they're growing much more quickly, so I'm not sure what the difference is exactly. Across the way, these are those amulet coreopsis that I grew from seed that are just an annual. The sedums are starting to form their flowers. Okay, these Monarda are a different one than what I have in the fire pit garden. These are raspberry wine. And they have not been affected by powdery mildew. They're starting to fade out, but otherwise the plants look really good. And I need to come through and deadhead the Cerise Queen Yarrow. It might give us another flush if I do that. The penstemons have faded out and the echinaceas are going strong. These are a Cheyenne Spirit, and these are mellow yellow, and as you can see they've both self-seeded all throughout here. Actually, it looks like one of the seedlings is actually going to bloom, so that's exciting. The others are still a little bit small, so we'll see what the colors look like on there. The Cheyenne Spirits have a lot of different colors that they could be. Little nasturtium in the pot has been blooming. I think it's black velvet nasturtium that I grew from seed. Culinary sage. And I have a feeling that this grass is just not gonna make it. I've lost a couple and then the others are just like growing so strong. It's a tufted hair grass. And then this is a Panicum virgatum shenandoah, a switchgrass, also a native. And for whatever reason, this one is like really stunted. Here's a different one that I have that isn't doing, this one's doing fairly well. This one is kind of struggling. This one is kind of struggling. And then we come across to the other side and these ones are doing extraordinarily well. You can see they have their seed heads on them. They are massive. They could be split probably in the spring. I don't want to split grasses in the fall. I think it's better to plant grasses in the spring. And then in the corner I have another one that again is just massive, and this one kind of got knocked over ever so slightly. We just had a pretty heavy rain, but it'll perk back up. I really enjoy it though. The seed heads are really pretty. They've got a pink hue to them, reddish pink hue. But here's that other raspberry wine Monarda. More Cerise Queen that should be deadheaded. This is berry chiffon coreopsis, which is just starting to bloom. You can see these Veronicas are still quite tiny. And then these are just some seed sages. I think they're clary sages that I planted and grew from seed. And more of that amulet coreopsis, pineapple sage, and kind of underneath this is a button bush, which is doing really well. I have yet to see any of my button bushes bloom. Maybe next year will be my year. Let's come across, and now this is the fire pit garden. This is kind of that blank area that I had where I threw in one of my fireside 9-barks, which is doing really well. She's starting to root in, put on new growth. The color is just unbeatable. It's so dark, and it gives this red glow. And this is one of those hyacinth beans, the ruby hyacinth beans. Finally, this one's starting to take off a bit, climb up this trellis. Joe pieweed is all in bloom. I think these sage in the front will probably give us another flush. We'll see. This is Vernonia, which is about to get ready to bloom. And then behind that is that Agastaki that I grew from seed last year or the year before. And this is just 2 plants. I like the contrast in foliage color. The stems of this and the leaves of this are really light, and the Joe pieweed is like the exact opposite. The foliage is darker, the stem colors are this dark red, and that contrast is really nice. One thing I don't like though is the leaf type of the Vernonia. You know, they're really thin, small. It's very similar to the Agastaki. There's not enough contrast there, so I'm thinking this Vernonia will probably be relocated this fall. And then here's kind of an ugly site, but we have to show the ugly too, right? These are the cherry pops Monarda that were really hit with the powdery mildew, and the blooms have all faded out, and you can see we're getting new growth that doesn't have the powdery mildew yet, and I just haven't deadheaded, but they pretty much have leaf loss up, I don't know, 2/3, 3/4 of each stem. So were I to come through and deadhead, it would basically look like a bunch of stems just poking up, which is fine. But yeah, I definitely think that I have to yank these plants, and I'm thinking maybe replace them with the raspberry wine that wasn't affected and hasn't been affected by powdery mildew, which is a shame. Okay, and over here, these are, I think, little rockstar black-eyed Susan, little rockstar Redbeckia. I can post that on the screen, double check. Growing through that is, I think, what do they call it? Gray coneflower, which I did not plant. I don't have it growing anywhere in my garden, any of them. So I don't know if somehow a seed was dropped in here, or maybe in one of these Redbeckia plants, there were a few, I don't know, coneflower seedlings. I'm not sure what's going on here. I'm into it. They're toppled now again from the rain, but yeah, I did not do that. I think there's like two or three plants. They're kind of blocking out the Redbeckia, so I think again this fall I'll probably move those to a better location. And these are the grasses that I've been waiting to see. These are the black hawks. They're getting their seeds. Look how fun that is. These are a bit slower growing than a lot, taking a bit to fill out, and they're definitely a warm season grass. They're not a cool season grass. So they've been putting on a lot of their growth more in the last month. But next year I'm expecting this to be a lot more filled out. Now that I'm kind of able to keep the chickens out and stop them from, you know, revealing the roots. And then behind that are those other switchgrasses, another panicum, I think they're north winds. And then the drift of coneflowers. Again, these are a Cheyenne spirit. Doing really well. Liatris behind that. Muley grass. And I do have some of Verbena bonariensis kind of sprinkled throughout. Winecraft gold smoke bush. And then more coneflower and Vernonia and Monarda cherry pops. Then right here, these are all gonna be purple dome asters in this big drift, drifting into more of the echinaceas. So we'll head out of there, come into the cottage garden, which is going crazy. Winter blush squash doing really well, and this has actually worked out just fine because the lilies, I only have a few left that we're waiting on to bloom. Like, I will cut these all today. Yeah, and then it'll just be a few that have to deal with the squash. The watermelon, they're doing it. They're kind of growing up this, but they are also, you know, trailing everywhere as watermelon do. The dahlias aren't looking too bad. This is golden scepter right here, starting to bloom. Really pretty color. It's been a bit of a chore to make sure that the watermelon vines don't smother the dahlias, but we're doing it. And here's our big one so far, supporting it with this planter. The pepper plants, okay, yeah, see, the squash are just like not cooperating. They're trying to smother these pepper plants, but they're looking great. We've got some good sized bell peppers. I don't know, these are a hot pepper. There's a bunch on there. I'm not into the spicy ones, but we're gonna use them for salsas. I think those are habaneros, and then behind that, Hungarian wax, and then that front row are just like salsa peppers. Potatoes, I'm actually gonna come through and start harvesting these ones soon. Oh, you can see like some of them are already poking up, the littler ones. But yeah, these plants died back first. These ones are still dying back. So we'll have nice staggered harvests. That'll be good. Little sunflowers. They're actually quite cute. Just small centers, very petally. And sadness, the cucumbers that had taken on this whole bed and all of these trellises, they have angular leaf spot. Honestly, we get it every year. It just doesn't matter. So we're gonna come through and yank the plants out. But we did get pretty significant harvests, like pounds and pounds and pounds of cucumbers. So we're actually pickling a lot of them. Tomato plants got a little toppled in our torrential downpour, but some are starting to ripen. The mint bed. And then through here, turnips and carrots looking good. Actually, some of the turnips are about ready. Yeah, see, that one's poking right out. These are hakurai, I believe it's pronounced that way. Turnips, they're white. They're really delicious. We saute them, fry them. The moon garden portion of the cottage garden it's just crazy, it's wild. Again, the rains just knocked everything over. But I kind of like the wild, unkempt look. And right here, these vines are my moonflowers. They are finally like doing something. It took forever for them to really start putting on growth. This one got broken a little bit. But yeah, I'm expecting to actually have moonflowers this year, which will be a first for me. And just more of the big drifts of Echinacea, Purpurea, Echinacea white swan, Rudbeckias. And I have peonies planted in here and a few dahlias. The phlox starting to rebloom. And this is Virginia sweet shrub. It was supposed to be ruby spice, so these are supposed to be pink. They are not, but the bees love it. This is the morning, so these are the ladies who slept on it. Good morning, beautiful. And yeah, it has a lovely fragrance. And then on the other side, I have another one that is blooming behind that one. Also supposed to be ruby. Also not, but beautiful nonetheless. There's a look into the cut garden. All right. Moving into Redbud Grove. We had some sort of caterpillar that just decimated my poor little Canada chokecherry. Just stripped leaves. It like moved so quickly. But we caught the culprit. The chickens feasted. Yeah, deer have still been nibbling the sedums. It's been a bit difficult to keep the deer repellent on because we've just had crazy rains like every other day. More Rudbeckias. There's a white liatris, which is really pretty, in front of another of those fireside 9-barks. I have a lot of purple foliage, dark foliage shrubs in here. So the elderberry, black tower, and then this is a weigela. May night salvia starting to put on a new flush. Those cantaloupe echinaceas still hadn't quite filled out, but pretty nonetheless. Also toppling. These are some of those, the pearl yarrow, I believe that's what these ones are, that I grew from seed. These, I believe, are called fast eddy alliums. I'll double check. I got these ones as the bare roots from a university plant sale. Rose Queen Salvia on their second blush. On their second flush. So I'm anticipating that next year this is going to be almost no ground showing. Pretty darn close. And this poor thing, I need to wrap it. It's a fastigiate type of cherry. Okay, Amanogawa. And the deer just love it. Regardless of the deer repellent, they really just love the tender new growth coming out of this. So I'm going to wrap it. She's staying resilient nonetheless. Over here, another of the Fireside 9 bark. I think I only had 3. That would be the last one. So we have the alliums. These are just millennium alliums in bloom. This is an anise hyssop. I've got 3 of those that I picked up from the nursery to kind of keep in with this white, purple, yellow theme that I have going on. The Heliopsis Burning Heart, doing pretty well. The Liatris are in their full glory, toppling all over. This is another North Winds switchgrass. And you can see like that one's doing really well. They do get taller than the Shenandoah, but there's a Shenandoah right there that is just really behind where it should be. And another one right here behind the anise hyssop, that same thing, really behind where it should be. Alright, here's an Amber Jubilee 9 bark. Put on a lot of growth this year. Behind that are some of the seed yarrows. Again, I kind of have to rework this bed a little bit. These are the peonies and our redbud. So I'm thinking what I would like to do is kind of take this bed and extend it to include the redbud and include the peonies and just wrap it around like that. Another Millennium Allium looking really good. The blooms of the milkweed are petered out. Another Amber Jubilee. Really pretty coloration too, but nothing tops the ginger wine for me. It is absolutely my favorite. That's the one that I have growing in the cottage garden next to the greenhouse. Here's one of the hyacinth bean vines. Here's one on the other sides. Gonna meet it soon. A coreopsis. And these are just like a straight Nepeta. They didn't do that well this year. I grew these from seed last year and they were massive floriferous plants, but this year, not so much. I actually yanked a few that were in a different spot, and I think I'm gonna yank those ones out as well because I did not like the way they performed. This is the stand of Pycnanthemum muticum, which really put on a show, is still going strong. Just has tons of babies that slept on it all night. Look at, she's telling us to go away. She's got her leg thrown up. Another one back there. But yeah, pollinator magnet, they absolutely love it. Again, another plant that just did not handle the rain, toppled over. We have some Joe Pye weed in here as well. This one the deer got, but they didn't reach back and get this one yet. more bees sleeping on it. It's like my favorite thing to walk around in the morning and see all the bees sleeping in all the flowers. And here is the Monarda fistula. That did get hit with the powdery mildew, but doesn't look anywhere near as bad as the cherry pops in the fire pit garden, and has a lot of new growth flushing out. Oh, and the sparrow just tried to join us. I scared her off. Okay, turning around. This little corner of this bed is not bad. This is my Pearl Glam beauty bush, starting to get the little flowers, and then they'll form little berries. And here is the Veronicastrum virginicum Culver's root, which has more bees than any of them sleeping on it. Honeybees, bumblebees, carpenter bees, mason bees, all the bees in between. Let's see. Good morning, everybody. Love it. Yeah, so they love this as well. It's another native. And I have a lot of liatris kind of growing in between. Some more alliums. I think these are Medusa. And then this is a reblooming lilac. Some white nepeta that I grew from seed. And this is where this bed gets kind of icky. This is a firelight hydrangea that last year performed well. It was her first year in the ground last year. This year is struggling. A lot of things in this bed actually are struggling. And I think it is juglone poisoning, because this monstrosity that looks like some sort of shrub is walnut tree growth. I keep cutting it, and it just grows. It has smothered and killed some sage. It is killing the milkweed that is next to it. I have two types of milkweed in here that it's killing, and look at this one actually has monarch caterpillar on it. Yeah, the poor salvias, nothing can handle it. So I think what I have to do is kind of take everything in the vicinity around it out. What's dead is dead. And I think I just have to like dig this stump out. Yeah, like it's even impacting these nepetas, and it's the only thing that I can think. Oh my goodness, I can't believe I actually saw this. So right here, that's a monarch chrysalis. Let's see. Oh my goodness. So she's not ready yet. They start turning a little bit more transparent when the butterfly is ready to emerge. Well, that's freaking exciting. We'll have to keep our eyes on that. But yeah, so, and also my poor Montrose Charm white spruce, dead. And that's not surprising. I cannot grow conifers to save my life. I don't know if it's the fact that it's clay, super heavy, or really high alkalinities, or a combination of all of it, and maybe the juglone isn't helping anything. But yeah, she's probably gonna get yanked out. But yeah, it's not pretty. It's not a pretty bed. So we'll get that fixed, hopefully. That's the issue. I think that is the issue, just because I have these exact same plants growing all throughout different gardens in different parts of the yard, and in the same part of the yard, that are doing just fine. Like I have 3 firelight hydrangeas and everyone is doing just fine except that one. And the only difference that I've been able to kind of see is that none of them are planted this close to a walnut tree. See, here is another firelight doing beautifully, other than it did get nipped by the deer a little bit. Actually, our poor neighbors have a whole row of hydrangeas growing against their garage that have been stripped of any flower, leaf, or new stem. They're nothing now. It's pretty sad. Everything is looking quite good in here. Very excited for these chocolate Eupatorium rugosums to start blooming. They get white blooms, which is just such a beautiful contrast against the foliage. Even these powwow wildberry echinacea that I just planted are starting to bloom. Japanese beetles have really been getting the roses, but this is the Eustace Vi. Pretty pink. The phlox have been getting another, not as floriferous flush, but another flush of blooms. And I keep missing the hibiscus. I didn't realize how short-lived these blooms were on it. But they're really dark. Kind of similar to, actually, yeah, the color of the powwow wildberry. Need to deadhead the daisies. And here's a quick fire, which are just kind of the little sister to the firelight. Again, doing just fine. These are a Persicaria, fat domino, that I got as bare roots and put in this year, and they took a long time to even emerge from the ground. I thought that maybe I had lost them, but they're pushing through. Got hit by the deer a bit. I don't think we're going to see them bloom this year, but they survived. And this is the Bobo that's doing really well. That's the Bobo that's recovering some deer damage. The Astilbes, you know, they're new plants. They only put out a few blooms and they're fading out, but looks really good. And this is our potted ginkgo. So everything is doing pretty well in here. This is a Limetta hydrangea, which is just starting to get little clusters. Oh, this Bobo, I guess, is actually ahead of the other two. Such big flower clusters. I mean, obviously this isn't its full size, but they don't get very big. I want to say maybe 3 by 3, 2 to 3 by 2 to 3 foot tall and wide, something like that. But yeah, they get really big panicles. And the Haas Halo. These are the Astrantias. These Max Vogel anemones are so close. Look at that. I actually like the way they look at this stage. They're just like the little balls held above the foliage. This is the Lark Ascending. She's a little closed up right now. It's an open. Oh, we woke somebody up. Face rose. Really cute. And the Firelight. doing some weeding, getting this area ready to build that raised planter that I'm going to put up here. Okay, and I did a little bit of research, and these are the native aster I have planted here and have planted around the corner that are about 6 foot tall. Well, these are toppled, but about 6 foot tall. And I did not think that they were supposed to get that. Well, it turns out they get anywhere from like 3 foot to 6 foot tall. So I just missed that range and assumed, 3 foot. So my bad. And then these are the hostas and ferns that I kind of have to get relocated because my Kodiak black honeysuckle are thriving. These are the native alliums, Allium cernum, and you can just see the cute shape of them. They're called nodding onion. They're downturned. They feel a little whimsical to me. I really like the way they look. More asters. So in a few weeks, probably once we hit September, this is all just going to be lit up with kind of pinks and purples and whites once all these asters put on their show. And another little quick fire. And every time I think I'm going to start on my concrete paver walkway, we get rain, which is just too funny because we went from drought to pretty continuous heavy rains. So see, here is the other monstrosity of an aster plant. Leaning a bit. And yeah, hiding the beautiful astilbe that's blooming back there. So we'll relocate this plant at the end of the season, tuck it in the back more. But I think that is everything in the gardens. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope that you're enjoying kind of this peak summer glory in your garden.